Companies are suffering from a ubiquitous and insidious plague. The culprit? Email run wild. Companies lose thousands of hours each year fighting this plague, deleting unwanted and unnecessary emails. Employees waste enormous energy complaining or combating this growing tide. But what can a mere mortal do against this seemingly unstoppable disease? One company's management grew fed up with this wasteful situation. They had a vision of how their email practices could be different and better. This company took the first steps to address their internal email norms. They hired Peter Irish and Focal Point Business Coaching to develop a program to remedy the situation. This is their story.
My name is Peter Irish. I'm president of Business Coaching of Northern California and the area representative for Focal Point in this territory. When a former colleague of mine complained about the email scourge within his company, at first I asked a few questions. It seems that his employees sent and received too many emails, that the emails were notoriously ill-structured, lacking in subject lines, and that in general, unnecessary copies were being sent to everyone and his mother. After a while, I suggested we do something about it. He seemed intrigued but pessimistic. He said something like this: "I'm the CEO of a great company, but how can we really change people's behavior?" That's how COMM was born. Over the course of several telephone discussions, we elaborated the questions we knew we would need to answer. In the meantime, the VP of Human Resources had also joined the discussion. Most fundamentally, any cultural change relies on increasing awareness that communication is a two-way street. How could we get this across first and foremost to the management team? Beyond that, we agreed to focus on internal emails first. Well, what should be our norms? Once we know what the norms should be, how can we educate the community? How can we measure improvement? What should our metrics be? How long will it take? Who will we involve? What does success look like? And many, many other questions. Gradually, the answers evolved, driven, of course, by the time-honored practice of asking a lot of questions. An initial normative workshop with the management team would help them better understand that communication is indeed a two-way street and let us derive what the company's standards should look like. We distilled these into a robust set of internal guidelines. Quantitative analysis of large email samples would help us measure substantive progress, while qualitative attitude surveys would help us chart the cultural change. Functional team leaders helped anchor the process, acting as cohort leaders. Ultimately, 11 cohorts were populated with about 70 individuals. We reported and discussed the results in 11 educational webinars every 3 months, so that in total, including the normative work, we executed 5 flights over the course of 13 months. The quantitative analysis revolved around 110 email samples per flight, more than 500 in total, that measured main points as an index of word count, details as an index of main points, number of copies, and the relative formality or tone of the emails. Here you see the results from the February 2016 flight with the 11 cohorts arrayed across the horizontal axis. The blue dots, for example, represent the relative main points per word count index. In other words, the higher the blue dot, the fewer words were required to express the main points. You can easily see that some cohorts were intrinsically more efficient than others, requiring fewer words to express their main points. The green dots represent details per main point. Here too, you can readily see that there were big differences in the relative efficiency of the emails on this parameter too, with some cohorts probably providing more details than were really necessary. Already at this stage, the number of copies was relatively low, and the tone, the relative formality, was already numerically quite consistent. The qualitative surveys that ran in parallel also provided valuable information about the attitudes of employees towards internal emails. Among other questions, we asked respondents to cite the one word that best describes the company's internal email culture. Frankly, the answers were, at first, a little surprising and profoundly more negative than we expected. Expressions like hostile and CYA meant that the email situation clearly required attention.
That's all the time we have today in Part 1. But part 2 will tell you all about the wonderful results we achieved. In the meantime, here's a small hint about one very satisfied client.
Needless to say, the client is quite happy with the outcome and has given us a splendid endorsement. And they should be. After all, they have set and implemented effective internal email guidelines. They improved the efficiency of internal emails and, by the way, reduced the word count by 23% in total. They've shifted their culture by improving the attitudes towards their own email. At the same time, they've taught employees to use alternative means where appropriate. We will, of course, continue to monitor employees' email practices and attitudes to see that the positive change does not erode. So if your clients, friends, and acquaintances also suffer from too many unnecessary emails, tell them there is a cure. ILICATION. Oh, and you might want to give them my name. I'm Peter Irish from Business Coaching of Northern California, saying thank you and see you soon.